Hello, it is loom knitting time. So, it's been a while, I know. We are making a wearable. We are making a loom knitted hood slash face warmer slash scarf kind of situation. I'm going to assume that unless something's gone terribly wrong, there will be a picture of this on the thumbnail, so you'll know what we're working towards. Now, to make this, you are going to need if you're buying like the beginner sets with the hoops, you want the biggest size, which is 41 pegs usually. Now, if you've got a smaller gauge one, or you've got one that's got like 40 pegs or 42 pegs, don't panic. We will, as we go through, you will see how this can be adapted to different gauges and different peg numbers. Essentially though, this thing, like your hoop, it needs to be big enough, the loom, it needs to be big enough to comfortably go over your entire head and sit on your shoulders, or of the person you're making it. Not the size down from this, you can technically do that with, which is good for making beanies and things, but we need a little extra room in this one. Okay, so this is the size we are aiming for. I don't know how far across that is. Do I have a ruler? No. It's about, from the inside is roughly, I don't know, would you call that 16? No, 16 inches too big. Probably about 12 inches ish. I'm not good at estimating size, but yeah, so it is. If you've got the beginner set of looms, which most people do, all of these patterns that I do are fairly beginner friendly. It is the biggest of them, and usually that is 41 pegs. So this is where we're at. You will also need a loom knitting hook, a pair of scissors. I forgot to get out my darning needle, but you will need a darning needle to sew things up with. And this isn't essential. You can get away with doing some of the cast-offs with just the hook. I've done this before in videos. However, I think this is an 8mm. Yeah, because you want something that roughly matches the size of the pegs. But an 8mm crochet hook, 7-9 you can get away with. But a crochet hook that is roughly the same size as the pegs makes your life so much easier on cast-offs if you can grab one. So if you have this, it's not essential, but it is useful if you can get hold of it. I am making this entire thing in chunky yarn. Yarn Smith Create chunky yarn. This is a good budget yarn. It's acrylic. It washes very easily, which working with real fibres is lovely, but for wearables, sometimes you want to just be able to put them in the washing machine. So we're working with acrylic chunky. You can go up a size and do extra chunky. You can use 2 strands of DK. You could probably get away with an Aran weight. Yeah, this is still fairly, it feels not bulky, if that makes sense. It's warm, it's thick enough to make this pattern work, but it doesn't feel like really chunky and hard to move when it's made up. So you may be looking at this going, this is a bold colour choice. You are correct, but these are the colours associated with Motherwell Football Club, and this is for my husband, so this is what we're going with. This isn't all the yarn I have. This I think will take 4 100-gram balls, but I am going to kind of just do a bit of a random pattern with most of it being in this kind of deep mustardy yellow colour. I will confirm how many balls I used at the end of this, or I'll put it in the description so you can check before you start. As with all of these tutorials, I would recommend kind of watching it through once before you start, and then going back and crafting along. It's just a good way to do it. You can see what's coming up. You can anticipate things a bit easier. So we are going to start with this yellow colour. I'm just going to pop these out the way. And as usual, we start with doing a slip stitch. And I'm going to pop this on the keeping peg there. Pull it tight. Okay, so on a 41 peg loom, we are going to wrap. We are going to E-wrap cast on 19 pegs. The reason it's 19 is because it is basically, if you're working with any other kind of size pegs or looms, you want to divide the number by 2, but take off 1 for each side, like, because it's going to work in 2 halves, so -2, divide that number by 2, and if you've got one number smaller than the other, because it doesn't divide exactly, the smallest half is going to be the front, which is the situation we're in. So we've got 41 pegs, we take off 2, that takes us down to 39. Obviously you can't work half a peg, so we're working 19 on one half, 20 on the other. 19 is going to be our front, and so we're going to work that first. So we're going to start by E-wrapping. So if you didn't understand all those numbers, by the way, it's fine. It will make sense when we get there. Just go step by step and it'll make sense, I promise. Okay. So we are E-wrapping. So just literally coming around 19 pegs. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I'm just going to wrap this one around here to keep it out of the way. So I'm just going to double check by counting them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Fabulous. And we're going to knit this in the flat initially. So what I mean by that is we can push these down at the bottom, because all we're doing is E-wrapping and knitting over. And we treat the end pegs as turning ones, which means you don't knit them. So you come around it and then wrap back. And it just gives you a neater edge. So we're going to go back and just knit, E-wrap. I forgot how it is to do this around a camera stand. So yeah, so you can see there we've turned it and we're wrapping back. Okay, and then again I'm just gonna pop that one out of the way over here, so I'm not holding onto it so tight. And then once we're here, we've got all of them apart from the turning one, number 19, E-wrapped. We literally just knit them up and over. So just take them and lift them up on all of them. And this is row number 1, and we are going to do this for 30 rows. Okay, so nice and simple to start off with. Let me just push these down again. I'm going to do another one. So that is 1 row. Then come back to our yarn. Now again, we don't double wrap this one because it is a turning one. So we just come back around, wrapping them. I'm just going to put this around here to keep it out the way. Ooh. I like holding it with this hand, so I'll just pull it over. There we go. And again, we're just going to lift these off. So that one now comes off. And again, we're just lifting them over. So we're just wrapping, lifting them over. Simple, plain E-wrap. And we're going to do this for 30, again, 30 rows. So just keep wrapping back and forward, knitting them over, 30 rows. And then I will meet you back here. So if you're watching this the second time, hit pause, and I'll meet you back here when you've got 30 rows on. Hello. Okay, if you can hear a buzzing noise in the background, I apologise. Some workmen rolled up outside the house this morning. I don't know what to tell you. So Okay, so we've done our 30 rows. It looks like this. This is all good. Obviously, I've been doing colour changes. I haven't showed you them because, honestly, it's an added complication to this one that I'm making. Obviously, if you know how to do colour changes in yarn and you're confident with it, knock yourself out, go for it. If you're doing this as a beginner project, because there's a few moving parts to it coming up, I would work this one as a plain. So that's why I haven't showed them. But yes. So we've done our 30 rows. I need to first kind of secure the work that we've done. So I'm going to, because I realised I didn't, come back to where I started. Now, obviously, at some point, this little slip knot came off of the hook. And it's kind of just floating there. So I just want to make sure that's secure. So I'm going to pull the little slip knot out. And I'm just going to pop the end through a darning needle. And then I'm just going to kind of knot this onto the work. Just so I know it's not going to unravel. No harm is going to come to it. So I'm literally just slipping that back through itself. And then making a loop. And then coming through the loop just to tie a little knot. And finishing that off. And I'm going to do the same at this end. Because we're leaving it on the loom. But we're going to kind of start working on a different side to it. So you want to leave ends long enough to work in. So I'm just going to cut a few inches down. And then I'm going to take that end and again just pop it onto a darning needle. I've split the yarn. Not that that'll cause too big. Ah! I'm making it worse. Okay, wait there. Let me take my time slightly. Not rush. There we go. Better. So, yeah, you can see it's literally just still on that loop. But I'm just going to come in to like the next loop along, if you like, down on the side. And you do get bigger loops on the side, but they do look neater than working it a different way. And I don't want you around. So again, I'm just putting it through, creating a loop. There we go. And then pulling it through itself. And I'm going to do a couple of those because I want to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So again, just passing them through and passing them through itself till we get a little knot somewhere. There we go. And this will get hidden into the work later on. It's just, we do not want those coming undone. So now we've got them tied. We know this is secure on the loom. And nothing untoward will happen to it. So we did our 30 rows on that half. And the next part of this will come as, well, it might come as a surprise, but this should be fairly easy from here. So we're just going to make another little slip knot. Another slip knot. She says, completely failing to make another slip knot. I know people do these on their crochet hooks and they do them more deftly than me. But there we go. Okay, now we're going to pop this back on, keep a peg. Just pull it tight onto there. Now we're going to skip a peg here and we're going to E-wrap all the way around apart from one. So we're going to essentially E-wrap a section separated by one unwrapped peg on each side. So say exactly the same cast on. We just come up. And again, we skip this one. And we just wrap all of these all the way around. All the way around. Until there's only one left between them and we ignore it. Once we're here, we're just going to push these down. And we're going to do exactly what we did on the other side. So you should, if you count them, because this is a 41 peg loom, we had 19 wrapped here. We should have 20 wrapped. No, we shouldn't. That's incorrect. It's not 20, is it? Is it another 19? Let me just count them again. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh no, I was right. It is 20. It is 20. So yeah, so 19 wrapped on this side, which we've already worked. 20 wrapped here, which we're about to work, and 2 blank ones in the middle. And so yeah, once we've got these cast on, we are going to plain knit them also for 30 rows. So pretty much exactly what you've done on the previous side, but one more peg, essentially. Oh, don't do that. Yeah. So in exactly the same way, we're just E-wrapping and plain knitting. There we go. And again, remembering to keep our 1 peg gaps in the middle. Let me just wrap that on there. And then yeah, just go along and plain knit. And again, remember, exactly the same as the last time. Exactly the same as the other side. For 30 rows, and then come back again. So yeah, I will see you in another 30 rows. Okay, so I've also I've done my 30 rows, and I've also finished it the same way we did the last one, where I've just tied off, secured in the ends at both sides with little knots, exactly the same we did. So I now have, this isn't attached, so I now have 2 sides on the loom, yarn not attached, but work still on loom. Yes, we see. I'm trying to show where we're at. There we go. That's a fairly, there we go, you can see. Okay, so this is where things get just a little bit more complicated, might be an overstatement, but like, lock in and maybe watch. I know I said watch the whole tutorial through before trying it, but I also know everybody ignores that instruction. So, but this bit particularly, like this bit, we need to know where we're at. So we're going to start by tying another slip knot, where we always start. Okay, now instead of putting this slip knot on the little keeper peg, we're going to use it as an actual stitch. It's going to become our first stitch. So we're going to pop it on our first peg there. And now this bit is fairly easy, because we're just going to E-wrap the entire loom. So every single peg working in the round. Okay, so I'm just going to E-wrap all of these. Including the empty one, every single one. And the last empty one. I'm going to come down the keeper peg just to keep this out of the way. And now this bit's fairly easy. We're literally going to just knit them all over. Not these ones, because they only have 1 on. But everything with 2 on just gets knitted. Okay? We just knit it over. Nice and easy. I know you're watching this going, Lily, this isn't that complicated. We're getting to the bit. We're getting, every pattern has 1 bit that you need to pay attention to. And we are getting there. Okay. Let me just keep going around here. Not you, because there's only 1 on you. On to the next bit. Fabulous. Now, every peg has a single stitch on it. And things remain nice and simple for now. But not for long. Okay, so I'm just pushing these down because it makes the next round easier to work. Now, the next round. I'm not going to go through the adaptations for different size looms. But once you see the general pattern, you'll be able to kind of see what we're aiming for here. What we're aiming to do is double wrap every stitch, but apart from a small section in the middle of what we labelled the front bit. Okay, so you can kind of, once you see the shape, you'll be like, oh, okay, well, if I'm working with a smaller gauge, I just, you know, make that this many pegs. It's roughly kind of 10 to 15% of the pegs that we don't double wrap, we only single wrap. But once you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like on a smaller gauge loom, instead of, well, we're going to do 5 pegs on this one, you'd be like, instead of the 5 pegs, we can do, you know, I'll do 12 or whatever it is on your loom. But on a 4-to-1 peg loom, we start off, we are going to double wrap the first 7. So 1, 2, 3, well, 1 peg double wrapped. Don't sink down, I'm showing people. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For the next 5 pegs, we single wrap them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. There should be 7 pegs left of this panel bit, which we double wrap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that? Yep, that's attached. 7. Okay. We now continue to double wrap everything else. So, including this one we've just cast on, everything else gets 2 wraps around it. I know this seems fiddly now, but it means that this whole thing comes off the loom with very little making up to do, which is always my preference with any project. It's like the least stitching together I have to do, the happier I am. So, double wrap everything. Double wrap. Oh. Why do you have 2 stitches on? Because I didn't knit you off on the last round. I've missed one. There we go. There we go. Good job I caught that. Okay. So, every single peg now has been wrapped again. Now, this time when we knit them off, this is where it gets a little, not complicated, but you want to pay attention to what you're doing. Actually, no, this one's fairly simple still. So, we are now knitting these off. The bottom loop goes over everything else, whether that's 1 stitch or 2, bottom loop comes up and over them. So where we've got 2 here and a bottom loop comes over both. Again, bottom loop over both. Keep going round. Now, here we're down to these 5. That's fine. The 5 that we only wrapped once. With these, again, bottom loop comes over the single one. That's absolutely fine. You may want to mark these pegs on your loom if you're more of a beginner, just so you don't kind of get to that bit and then panic like, why is this only got so many loops on? Okay, and again, we're back to the double wrapped one. So again, we're just bringing that bottom loop up and over everything else on the peg. Okay. And there we go. Now, okay, we're at this stage. So now you're at a stage where some of your pegs will have 2 stitches on or 2 wraps of yarn round, and some will have 1, or 5 of them will have 1. This is good. This is what we want. Now, this next row is probably the most fiddly of the entire project, okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to stitch another row. We're going to e-wrap another row, but we need to divide some of the stitches that we have double wrapped. So, and also we're going into something called a rib stitch. So now the way I normally do a rib stitch, I can't really do. I can, but it may be worth going around. You see the ones you've got 2 loops on, just kind of pulling them apart a little bit. You don't need to do the whole loom, but let's do a few for when I'm demoing this stitch. And I am going to show you the entire next row. So you've got this down. So to do a rib stitch, we start in a very normal way. So we come onto our first peg and we e-wrap. Easy. Nice and easy. Just an e-wrap at the top there. The next one, we're going to come down and we want to ignore. We're going to start ignoring the bottom stitches on the ones that are double wrapped. So we want to kind of lie the yarn between the 2 of them. So the first one, where we e-wrapped it, we're going to just bring the top stitch up and over. Leave that one alone. We're going to pretend this one doesn't exist for a while. The same with all the other double wrapped ones. The bottom stitch, as far as we're concerned, for a little while, just doesn't exist. We're just going to ignore it. It's just going to stay down there. So we e-wrap the first one. The next one, we come through that top loop and we catch our yarn. And again, this is why it's fiddly, because we're working with a situation where we've got the double wrap on as well. So we come through, we catch the yarn. I promise this is easier when you're not working around a camera. There we go. We catch the yarn and we pull it up and through. So don't have enough hands. There we go. And I promise this gets easier after this row. So we pull the yarn up, so we have a little loop, and then what we do is we lift it up and over and pop it back on. Okay, and we work those in pairs the rest of the way around. So sometimes it's easier to do them. Usually I do ribs in pairs, but on this one it might be easier. So back to the e-wrap one, which is easy. Top one up and over, ignore the bottom one. We then come to the purl stitch and we're bringing this across, coming into that top loop, pulling a little bit more looseness on it, bringing the yarn up and through. This may not be the optimum yarn for this because it is quite a loose twist on it as well. Let me just divide those loops. So I've got the top one there, There we go. Catching it through. That's a little easier. Pulling it up and down. And again, we're just ignoring this bottom stitch. So again, E-wrap, up and over. There we go. Now with this one, pulling that stitch up before bringing this across. Pulling it through. I'm trying to keep this on camera and work it. So, yeah. Coming up. Pulling it through. Pulling that loop up. Lifting it off and putting it on. Okay. Now, we're getting to our single one. So this one is an E-wrap, but I don't want to, like, I'm not changing the pattern just because there's one on it. It remains the same. It's a little simpler because we've only got one to work with. So again, we're onto an E-wrap. So this one gets, again, bottom one ignored. Just push to the bottom. Pretend it doesn't exist for now. And then that top loop. Up and over the A-wrap. And now, because these are, we've got single stitches on these ones, they're a little easier. So this comes into the purl stitch. So we come through. It's much easier once we've got just that one on. In. And then again, like I'll show you the standard rib stitch when you've just got one on is just rounded down, and then you can fairly easily just pull these through and into the right places. It's complicated because we're working with two, and to be honest, it's not that hard to work with two normally. It's because I'm working round my camera setup. So again, E-wrap, up and off, this one through and down. And after you do this first one, even though there is still like 2 pegs because they've been divided already, like you can see here on the ones we've already worked, they separate a bit easier. So life will get somewhat simpler once we've done the first one. What did I just do? Was that an A-wrap? Were you an A-wrap? I can't remember. What did I do? Did I just A-wrap you? Or did I pull you up and through? I think it was an A-wrap, wasn't it? Wait there. Back to the beginning. A-wrap, purl, A-wrap, purl, A-wrap, purl, A-wrap, purl. E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl. It was a purl. We're back to E-wraps. So, again, we're just going to E-wrap, up and over. And then again, we're just ignoring that bottom loop. We're coming across, pulling you down to the bottom to make life easier. And then up. Oh, I just want one that pulls cleanly, so you don't think I'm lying when I say this is, I promise you, somewhat easier when you're not working around a camera frame. You're going to call us a liar, and in the comments as well, I know this. This is very splitty yarn. Why did I do this with this yarn? Okay, there we go. And then up and over. And we're continuing this, so we're continuing to stitch in this way for, why have you wrapped yourself around there? There we go. For a while. So just A-wrapping, working only with the top loops and purling to form a rib stitch. Because this is a 41 peg loom, eventually we have got an odd number. So you're going to end up with having to choose to have either 2 normal stitches or 2 of the pearl is the ones, these ones that we're pulling through, by the way. See that one? That one was simple. It's because I wasn't thinking about it too hard. You're going to have either a normal knit or a pearl stitch, like 2 next to each other at the very end. I would go for the pearl stitch, even though it's slightly more complicated, purely because it hides better. But to be honest, it doesn't matter because you don't really see that part of it when the garment is finished. So you're going to continue to knit, pearl, working in the round. We're just going round and round, but remembering our last stitch is odd. You need to have a knit and a pearl on the same stitch. So it's knit, pearl all the way around. When we get to the last peg, which is by itself, pick either knit or pearl and consistently do that one. So when you start back on the next kind of time around, you start back with knit, pearl. You don't, yeah? So knit, pearl all the way to the last one. Either knit or pearl, but pick what it is now. And then start again, knit, pearl, working in the round. And you need to do that, keep going round and round in this pattern for 25 rows, okay? Once you have done the 25 rows, come back and meet me here. I don't know where else you would meet me, but come back and we will go to the next part. 25 rows done. So we are now here. It will look like this. You will have like this kind of situation happening, and this is correct. So what we're going to do now is cast off the top set of loops. Now to do this cast off, the way that we're going to do it is we work backwards around the loom to the normal direction we work in. Now, this is where the crochet hook comes in incredibly useful. Like, please get one. It makes it easier. You can do this cast off just with the normal loom knitting tool, but it's just fiddly. Like, I'll show you. So, to start, we're going to just lift the top loop off. Like here. And then what we want to do is we want to pull a loop through it. And this is what I mean it gets awkward. So in order to do that, I'm going to set this down. Can you see that? There is better. Okay. So we literally like lift this loop up and over and pull a new loop in. And then we take the next loop off. And then we're lifting this one over. And then we're lifting another loop through. But if you do it with a crochet tool, so I'm just going to switch them out, it's just so much easier. You can instantly go into crochet mode. If you crochet, you will find this quite easy. It means you do have to like pick up and lift. They're a little harder to get off here, but it's still very doable. Still easier to just go around. So we lift a stitch, we pull the loop over, we pull an additional loop through, you're pulling through an additional loop between each one that you lift off the loom, okay? So coming in. Now if you may feel these loops getting quite tight, and they may get a little difficult to pull off, in which case you can always use your loom tool to get to them. But as you can see, it is just a case of lifting the loops off and pulling one over the other, and remembering to put this middle one in each time. Okay, so I'm going to finish. I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, we're nearly there. So last one, off, on, over. And I'm just going to pull one last one through, because And of course, this is the one where I catch the yarn. I'm going to pull one last one through because that's going to help one knot. Cool. I can just grab the end of this and pull this through. And tie a little knot there to secure it. Tie a knot. There we go. Fabulous. This is where this all starts to come together. Okay, so at this point, you have kind of this whole double layered situation going on here. So we have what will be like the scarf section. We now have the face warmer section done. The last part to do is the hood section. Now the hood section is 45 rows of plain back and forward knitting. So we're going back to what we were doing at the start. So we're going to knit through a slip stitch again. So just to remind you of that, we're putting, make a loop. Make a loop. Pull the yarn through the middle. I really need to find a clearer way of demonstrating that. I'll do a video that's just, this is what I'm doing. So yeah, so you've got your little loop. We're going to put this on. So remember where we had 5 that were just single wrapped? Yeah, so this is going to be the front. So this is going to be the gap in the 2 sides of our hood section. So we're going to place the slip stitch and we're going to treat this as our first stitch. And this is going to go over the first peg that still has a loop on. Because remember, this is why we had those double loops in. And then, oh, it's been so long since I've knocked a camera while filming. I'm going to leave it in. I'm not editing it out. You can see my chaos. You wouldn't be here if you wanted non-chaotic tutorials. So once we've got this, obviously our first little stitch on there, we're literally just going to straight wrap this and we're going to go back and forth using the last one as a turning peg. Obviously we completely ignore these now. These don't exist. We're just going back and forward between the rest of the pegs. I'm sorry. I forgot it. I remembered to put the phone I'm filming with on Do Not Disturb, but apparently not the house phone. But anyway, chaos. There's always chaos. So, yeah, just to reiterate that in case you could not hear me over the ringing that kicked off at the end of that last little section. So, we put the slip knot onto the first peg that we have with a stitch on it. And we A-wrap. So, you can either, it depends, I don't know why I still have the crochet hook. We're back to our normal loom knitting tool now. So yeah, you can either wrap the entire loom to the end. It is a bit awkward when you're working with this bigger section, so sometimes it is easier to do it piece by piece. But we are essentially just plain knitting these at this point. Right the way around until we get to our empty pegs. And then we're literally turning and coming back and literally knitting flat like we did for these sections, but bigger, obviously, for 45 rows. Okay, so I'm going to let you go and plain knit for 45 rows, and then I will meet you back here, and we will almost be done at that point. Not quite, but almost. We will have a little bit of making up to do, and I might put a fringe. Should we put a fringe on these? Yeah, let's put a little fringe on it. We'll do that as well. Okay, I'll see you in 45 rows. Okay, so now we've finished those 45 stitches. We're going to cast this whole thing off the same way as we did previously. Again, I'm going to use the crochet hook because I think it's just easier. I'm just going to lift the first one, pull a loop through, lift the next stitch, pull it through, pull a loop through, lift a stitch, bring it over, pull a loop through, and just continue in the same way that we did when we did the other cast off. Just alternating, pulling a loop through with the yarn and the hook, with lifting a stitch off the loom. So I will let you do this all the way around, and then I will meet you back here. Okay, I'm just about to take the last stitch off and pull that through. Now we can lift the hoop out the way, kind of, can we? Yes, but we need to grab this through. Fabulous. Ooh, we are off the hoop. Now, we do need quite a length of yarn to make up with, so before we pull that through and tie it, cut a good length. I think I've got about 1 meter there. Then I'm going to pull it through and pull this tight. Sorry, you could not say that. I just pulled it through this loop to pull it tight. I need to remember to look at the screen. Okay, now we are going to, we have this situation. So you can see how this is going to come together. So we have the face warmer here, the scarf ends, and we have the hood section. But as you can see, the hood section needs sewing together. So we're going to take the end that we've just tied. We're going to fold this inside out, and we are just going to whip stitch along here. Okay, so literally just whip stitching in and out through the top to join it together. So I will let you go and complete that, and then I will come back. Okay, so I've now whip stitched along the length of the top of the hood section. Just a basic whip stitch. I did actually cut vastly too much yarn, but that's fine. So I'm just going to come in here and tie this off. And then I'm going to cut this somewhat shorter before weaving the end in. So just weave this in. Okay, so literally just going back along and weaving the end in once I've knotted it to make sure it stays in place. You can see where I've done colour changes. I've been weaving ends in as I go. Okay, just snip the last of that off. Now, we can flip this the correct way. Here, and you can see that we have this here. Now, what I do want to do is just come to the ends to finish this. I did say I wanted to do a tassel. I'm not sure it needs a tassel, you know. Should we add one? I don't think it needs a tassel. No, let's add a tassel. Let's see what it's like. Let's test it. Let me take... Now, I don't want these to be particularly long, so I'm just going to use my hand to wrap a number of times. Use the palm. Don't do what I just did. So, just going to wrap that. Obviously, we trim these, so we don't need to worry about them being too perfect. But okay, so we have tassel lengths, not that one. I always cut one an odd length. So I'm just going to try doing these with two. And the way that we do this is, if you look at the edge of the knitting, you see you've got all these V's. So we're going to put a tassel into each of these. Now I don't want it to be too thick, so I'm just taking a couple of strands There we go. And again, using trusty crochet hook. And I'm just going to find the first V. Okay. I'm going to fold this in half so I have the center section there. And I'm going to just pull that through, so I've got the tassel yarns here. And I've got this through the V, and I'm just going to pull it through both of them, like this. So I have the loop. And I'm just going to put fingers through and grab the ends of the tassel pieces and pull this tight. So we have one little tassel there. And you want to go along and do that into all of the V sections on both sides. And then we can trim them to length. Okay. Okay, so this is what it looks like once they're all in. And at this stage, it is just a case of going along and trimming them all to a uniform length, which I would suggest you do carefully because you only get one shot at it. So this is what it looks like all made up. Hood, face warmer, and then down into the scarf section. And now I guess we just need to see what it looks like on. So this is how it sits when you first put it on. And if you put the hood up,